You're live. Okay. Okay, we should be live. Let me just make sure it's working. Okay, we should be live. Let me just make sure it's working. Okay, cool. So we're gonna start. Welcome to Bootcamp Season 3. Hey guys. So, I'm just gonna start with maybe some administrative issues just to test the stream. So if there's any weird looping or things like that, please drop it in the chat and alert me. But just to begin, we were super overwhelmed but also excited with the interest in Bootcamp Season 3. We had around 400 students sign up this time. And many of them actually are people who are maybe lost their jobs or desperately in need, which really helps us fulfill our North Star mission, which is kind of helping the people who are struggling during the pandemic. So we were overwhelmed actually because we have to process part of those requests manually. We figured out a way to automate some of it actually. Yeah, last night I was up all night and I used OpenAgent Studio to automate part of it because there's hundreds of requests actually. So basically, everyone who wanted free access to the course, who had essentially, if you're a subscriber to cheatlayer.com, you get free access, and if you're an early supporter, you get free access. But also, if you lost your job recently to AI or layoffs, there's a number of people who now also have free access. So you should have free access. You should have the solo plan, and that's how you're maybe seeing me right now. And then next, by tonight, we'll be able to probably go through and automate upgrading all the users' cloud tasks at cheatlayer.com. So we're offering 50,000 cloud tasks, which should be enough for you to build, or at least prototype and run some of these tests together. With me. Okay. So those are some administrative issues. Let me just check, just to make sure that there's no looping or audio issues in the chat, and then we'll continue. Okay, people can hear us. Okay, good. All right, now we're going to continue. So let me just explain what is Bootcamp Season 3, why we're launching Bootcamp Season 3 so quickly, like what is the urgency of what we're doing here, and what is CheatLayer actually, why we even started CheatLayer. So I founded CheatLayer during the pandemic. Many of you should know, but we have some completely new subscribers who joined us like in the last few days to help my friends who had lost their jobs and businesses rebuild online. And I started with my best friend, and that was successful. So he started referring me around, and people started referring me around, and very quickly I was helping hundreds of people globally, pro bono during the pandemic, build whatever product they wanted. And so you can imagine that it's kind of overwhelming and difficult. And so around the same time, we also got early access to GPT-3. So the thesis was we could scale up what we were doing because much of the scaffolding for building businesses is the same. And that's why you can actually hire people for these roles. And so we set out to solve this problem using the first version of GPT-3 before ChatGPT existed, like 2 years, 3 years before ChatGPT existed. And required a lot of prompt engineering. And so we tried to solve that problem, but it wasn't powerful enough. We launched the first bootcamp to teach our customers, actually, probably one of the first prompt engineering courses before the term prompt engineering was even coined. Around January 2022, we launched Bootcamp 1 to teach our customers how to generate automations using language, but most of that language involved understanding code. So you can understand that doesn't really solve the problem we set out to solve, which was helping my friends who were mostly completely non-technical and struggling build online businesses. So to actually solve that root problem, after the first boot camp, we noticed in our metrics that after teaching people like prompt engineering and how to generate automations, the usage dropped for GPT-3 usage. So really, it wasn't really solving the problem. And we suspected the reason was because you still needed to know coding concepts, and it wasn't really meeting customers at their level of understanding. So we set out to solve this problem a year before the ChatGPT API. We realized that there were fundamental roadblocks in just general automation, and we tried to solve it in such a way that it would actually be in simple language in the requests that we were getting from customers who were telling us like they wanted to automate eBay and go do all these little things, and we had to explain to them they needed to use code selectors and stuff like that. And so we finally solved that problem. 2 months ago, we got 100% in our tests using a new multimodal model that we've built over the last year called Atlas 2. So essentially, what Atlas 2 does is it solves a problem that we realized breaks all other RPA tools about a year before the ChatGPT API came out. And we realized that this was a fundamental problem that we needed to solve if we're going to actually really help our customers, but also for generalized agents. So if we're going to go down this path of using LLMs to automate businesses, we would need to solve this problem. Essentially, the biggest problem we realized when we were helping customers when we first launched for the first few years is when we taught them finally how to build the automation and they succeeded. Oftentimes, most successful businesses like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, they update their designs if they're successful frequently to iterate. And so you have to come back and rebuild the automation. And this is a fundamental problem that breaks all other RPA tools today, including UiPath, Microsoft, Automation Anywhere, and things like that. And so the reason we built this bootcamp is because we finally solved this problem. And it took a year to solve it. It was really hard. We kind of started working on it even before anyone else was working on agents. I'm pretty sure we were the first startup to get working on agents and the first startup to get approved by OpenAI to sell GPT-3 for automation in the summer of 2021. And we succeeded in the last 2 months. However, this seems like a no-brainer solution, actually. So what I mean by that is it currently beats UiPath, Microsoft, all these other RPA tools in a fundamental problem. And we're getting a lot of really big inbound interest from large enterprise customers like Infosys who are looking to switch from UiPath. However, the technology of what we built, we think it's such a no-brainer thing that Microsoft, UiPath, they'll all probably copy this idea. It'll probably be ubiquitous maybe in a few months to a year, if we're lucky. If we're not lucky, it's a few weeks. And so that's not really what's concerning to us. So we're not interested in defending patents in court. I have granted U.S. and international patents, but in my career I've never seen a startup defend patents, and so that's not something we're going to do. And in fact, that takes your eye off the market, and it shouldn't be what you should focus on, really. And instead, we're going to focus on building a defensive moat using something called network effects, which is something I'll teach maybe in class 3. But the purpose of launching this bootcamp is that this same head start that we have for the next few months, if we're lucky, is conveyed to our customers, you guys. And what I mean by that is some of these solutions that I'm going to teach in today's classes, you can't do in any other RPA tool on the planet today, including UiPath, Microsoft, Automation Anywhere, all these other tools. And so what that means is we only have a few thousand customers right now, actually, and a few hundred subscribers. So the number of people who know about this is actually very small, and that means that our customers have opportunity to target markets that are previously untouched by AI. And I'm actually meeting with customers daily. We have a calendar for subscribers to meet with me as many times as they want. So I'm meeting with customers who have deep industry insight in markets like oil rigs or freight or law firms and things like that I don't have much insight into, but hasn't been touched by AI yet. Okay, so maybe law firms has been, but you get the idea. But essentially, what we've done is we've created a path for our customers to leverage that head start and build an agent in a market that's been previously untouched by AI. So we designed this 4-week course to make it as condensed as possible. The last bootcamp was 8 weeks. We tried to condense it down to 4 weeks to give you guys a chance to take advantage of this head start. If you can actually if you go through each of these classes, we will teach you by the end of the course, even if you're completely non-technical, to build a custom agent that targets a market that you hopefully have deep industry insight, sell that agent in a enterprise-grade white label, make as much money as we do, even more possibly, and then automate selling it using marketing and sales agent in 1 month. And so we try to condense it down into 1 month because we think we only have a few months at best before other people copy this idea, so that our customers like you can actually take advantage of this. And it would be kind of cool if we had like a cheat layer mafia of startups that grew out of these boot camps. So that would be kind of exciting and meaningful to me, because I've been helping people. You can understand hundreds of people globally, trying to help them build businesses since the pandemic over the last 3 years. And if you understand like VC investing and startups, most of them failed, honestly. And so but the few that were successful is why I keep going. So I want to increase that success rate, actually. And I think this is probably one of the biggest opportunities. We had an opportunity with Bootcamp Season 2, actually. Some of the ideas that we were talking about in Bootcamp Season 2 ended up turning into like $1 million products that got funded. And it's like, we had an opportunity then. So I want to try and help our customers take advantage of this opportunity now before it disappears. And so, okay, so that's just basically explaining why this exists. We're also going to be using the funds from this whole bootcamp to fund the launch of Open Agent Studio to the public next week. So we've done some very epic, successful product hunt launches last year, April and July, that were kind of key and consequential in helping us grow MRR and sustainably launch this business, actually. And so I'll be talking about more of that in later courses and how to win product hunt. Like towards the end of the course, I'll be talking about how to market and sell things. But essentially, we're going to launch again, something like that again, something big in the next week. So stay tuned for that. And funds from this course will actually go towards making that more epic. So if you're interested in helping us fund this course, we know we have a lot of supporters who are just interested in supporting us. This is one way to do it. You already have free access to all the materials, but if you want to, you can upgrade to the community edition and meet with me weekly. We'll have weekly community team building events to help you actually form like a co-founding team and have more live, deep insight and interaction with me. And then we'll also be picking 5 people who have the community subscription plan to fly them out to our no-code hackathon event in San Francisco. So our plan to launch this, we believe that we're probably the most significant no-code agent builder on the planet today, at least for today. So, but the problem is no one knows about us, actually. So our plan to launch this into millions of people, maybe non-technical people, is to host these no-code hackathon events. And you don't need an experience. In fact, this entire course, you don't really need an experience. We'll be teaching people around the country, starting with a big event in San Francisco. So that's maybe like a few weeks out. So next week we'll be launching Open Agent Studio just to give people a head start. And the funds from this course will be going towards this hackathon event. 5 community edition, community plan members. We'll be flying them out and with an all-expense paid trip to this hackathon launch, just like we did last year. And I'm super excited for that. Okay. So let's just start. That was just mostly administrative issues, not really the class. So let me just explain just before we begin. So in this class, we'll be talking about general ways to target a product that's valuable in this market. And it's interesting and important to consider that this market is probably different from every other market. And in fact, the market actually even changes daily. And I'm going to try and convey that to you through a few stories over the last few months. But essentially, the market changes daily based on even just like the subjective intuition of stakeholders, companies, startups, founders, daily. And so in order to, it's really like a nebulous state, and it's really hard to understand, and I think most people actually don't really know the current state of the market. But in order to actually like have a thumb on understanding it, you have to meet with customers and VCs and other founders constantly. That's the only way to get signals into how the market is changing daily. And the AI market specifically is changing daily. So let me just give you like an example of what I mean. So when we first launched last year on Product Hunt, we had several ideas on how to leverage our research, but we only launched our vision. We only launched like our intention of the desktop app. And one of the, like two of the ideas that we were considering were sales agents and social media A/B testing agents. And those seemed actually, there are actually very valuable ideas. And we were working on them before the ChatGPT API came out. And we were mentoring people in Bootcamp Season 2, you might remember, some students might remember, to launch those products. However, if you had launched those products, you would probably have had a hard time now. And, well, unless you had launched them when we were talking about them. If you were first, you might have done well, actually. So that's another concept I'm going to teach. There's another slide to launch as soon as possible. But my point is that sales automation and social media automation were obvious to us, but also obvious to everyone else. So what ended up happening is now you can actually go see that there's many sales automation startups in the space. It's a saturated market, which means that there's no defensive moat. It's very difficult to build a defensive moat. You can build things with network effects, but essentially now it's a saturated market, so it makes it much harder. So what I'd like to emphasize is when you're trying to find a product idea, there's some general advice that you'll find in books and like online and YouTube, but no one can understand a market better than a founder who's doing these things, taking these meetings with VCs and customers. VCs should not understand a market better than a founder, actually, by virtue of what founders do and how VCs interact with them. So if they're building anything of value, essentially, I recommend first targeting problems that are urgent and frequent. So these are the general advices that you can get, but each market is different. So take this general advice, but then understand that there is another level that you're going to need to know if you want to excel and do really well in this, right? You can build a sustainable business usually if you don't do everything perfectly well, but if you really want to build like a large business, large startup, grow really quickly, you kind of have to do everything well. And so these are one of the things you need to consider. In order, like this advice that I'm giving you is just the basics to actually understand the truth in your market that I maybe have no idea about, like oil rigs and stuff like that. You should be talking to customers. You should be meeting with VCs and other founders in the market constantly. But just to start to get you into the market, right, to the point that you can start talking to those people, you should start by finding a problem that's urgent and frequent in your own life. And this is worth it to spend like a little bit of time thinking about, because if you can imagine, if you build a product that you're going to build a startup out of, it might take a significant amount of your lifetime out of. So spend some time. The reason you want to think about urgency and frequency is because that makes it easier to sell. That kind of, it's like one signal that it's a large market, but it's not perfect. It's just one of the signals, actually. And this intuition, you kind of learn just by practicing and doing. And it's not something that you need to like keep practicing and doing, essentially, because the markets change constantly. Someone who was an expert 10 years ago in mobile startups will not be doing well in AI startups, if you understand. So I'm just going to give you the tools to formally and objectively evaluate those ideas and allow you to take this framework and apply it to any new market in the future. Like maybe there's something cool that happens after AI, like superintelligence or something. The same framework of thinking will help you evaluate product ideas in a scientific way that will allow you to iterate to product market fit without wasting too much time. Okay? And so, I mean, you don't have to follow this, but it just kind of helps you. It's a framework that I've used that's been useful for me. So what I recommend doing before the next class, spend the next week considering and just observing what's happening, the problems that are happening, not the solutions. Find a problem that are urgent, frequent, burning in your friends' work or in your own life. And the reason you want something that you have a personal connection to is because when you're building startups, inevitably, even if you have like a big launch or something, inevitably there will be a difficult period of trough of sorrow. And in those periods, you will have the motivation to keep going if it's something that's personally important to you. Like for Cheat Layer, for example, I started this during the pandemic, and I'm still regularly helping like homeless customers who can only meet with me at a phone or at a library. And that's what keeps me going. I haven't helped them yet, so that's why I work day and night, 24/7. And you got to find a problem like that that's going to keep you working, even if you're not making a lot of money, or it's not successful, or you're getting punched in the face constantly, because that's going to happen as a startup. And so, okay, next, one more thing that I'd like to just highlight before we drop into the interactive portion of this class. So next we'll be doing some interactive demos. But basically, I just wanted to highlight why we're doing this course. You can leverage our head start because we've invented certain new RPA concepts that I'm going to teach you a few of them today that you can't do in other RPA tools. It's literally impossible, and I'm sure they'll copy it. But I've noticed with meeting our customers daily is we're helping them solve problems that they can't solve in other tools, and we're helping a group of people who are completely non-technical finally have access to those solutions. Because previously, in order to go and automate these things that were kind of harder, you need to be a coder. You need to hire a coder to like go build you a custom automation that did something, because all the other tools in Zapier and stuff didn't really work. And I'm sure if you've done this, you understand what I mean. You need to hire like a software developer to usually build those custom solutions. But now, you non-technical people have a path to automate anything that you've done manually before. As long as you've done it manually before, even if it requires reasoning, you can actually automate and target those harder problems that previously required software engineers. So that's kind of why we have this course. That's why we tried to condense it to 4 weeks to do it as quickly as possible. And we really believe like our customers today, like we have a few thousand, a few hundred subscribers. Out of those customers, there are a few of them that will probably build products that are more valuable than Cheat Layer itself, just because that's actually possible. And so that's why it's meaningful to maybe, it's meaningful for me to give this course, but also hopefully you guys stick through the end. And one of the reasons we're also doing it with teams and this community component is we learned in the last bootcamp is it really helps with accountability, and a lot of people really enjoyed forming teams in the Discord and stuff like that and discussing. And so we're going to continue that. That seems like a good approach. Okay, so all right, yeah. The last thing I want to mention is the AI market actually changes daily. So if you look at our launches, and this is actually a screenshot of SEMrush, you can see on SEMrush how we actually grew. So if you look back here, we left AppSumo around November of 2022, and then we grew mostly with our own sales team and sales automation, and then we launched here, right here, this like red dot, on Product Hunt and won #1 product of the day. And so what happened was, the reason we grew like this is not just Product Hunt. What typically the value of Product Hunt is other influencers and newsletters and people who are selling like their courses and teaching and coaching and stuff like that. They watch Product Hunt, and so they shared us. So tools like websites like Future Tools and Ben's Bytes and those influencers were really how we got most of this traffic. It wasn't just Product Hunt. So there's like secondary sources, which is interesting in your Product Hunt strategy. I'll be sharing some of how we won #1 and #2 and possibly winning again in the next week when we launch. That would be kind of exciting if we won during the class. That would be really cool. Actually, last bootcamp class, we won Product Hunt #1 product of the day, I think on like the last class, or one of the last classes. So that was kind of exciting. And so if we can do it again, it kind of proves the value of the course, right? And that would be really exciting. So, but my point is that the week before we launched on Product Hunt, right, in April, literally the week before, some people might remember this, ChatGPT launched. And so before ChatGPT launched, if we had launched 2 weeks before that, things would have been completely different. Because 2 years before ChatGPT launched, We were literally the only startup on the planet using GPT-3 for automation. You can go back and Google it and see. We were approved by OpenAI in 2021, the first startup to do it. But before ChatGPT became a thing, no one was thinking about this idea, using GPT-3 for automation. Literally, we were the only ones working on that. And then there's another startup called Adept.ai that published a year after we got approved. So I feel like we were probably the first. And so what I mean by that is the conversations I had to have with customers and VCs immediately changed after ChatGPT launched. Before that, we had VCs coming to us for months inbound, and we were blowing them away because literally they couldn't find a solution on Google. Nothing existed like this. I should have probably raised from them before ChatGPT, but now it's harder. Now it's even harder. So, but it's an interesting thing. It's also easier. So, how is it easier? Okay, so before the ChatGPT API launched, we had a sales team that we were selling Cheat Layer to customers, and we were making some larger contracts, but it was we had to push it into customers' hands. We had to go find those customers and teach them what this is because it didn't exist. Like I mentioned, before ChatGPT API, no one was doing GPT-3 for automation. We were the only startup. So we had to explain this concept to people. But after the ChatGPT API, and I'm maybe thankful that they did this, we started growing with something called product-led growth, which is, what I mean by that is on April 1st, that first month, we grew 8K MRR with inbound customers finding us. Mostly not from product hunt, from Ben's Bytes, Future Tools, secondary sources. So rather than me having to teach people, because ChatGPT proved this market exists and they primed 200 million people to believe something like this is possible, now people were looking for us. They were looking for these kinds of solutions. And that's how we grew mostly organically. If you look at SEMrush, this is how we've grown mostly. You can see the yellow line is paid traffic. We tested it, we stopped doing it. We grew mostly organically to 38,000 monthly every month. It's kind of slower now, but every month, mostly organically from that first two product launches, basically. So, what's my point? My point is that was a very lucky event. You can't, OpenAI launching ChatGPT is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And so maybe they'll do it GPT-5 will be something similar. It's really hard to predict something like that. But if we had launched sooner, we would have controlled the conversation. And we would still have the same benefit. But I would have controlled the conversation with investors, customers, and all that stuff, rather than me having to fit into why we're different with ChatGPT, if you understand what that means. So I'm happy to explain more in deep if anyone has questions about this after class and things like that. It's a really interesting concept. But basically, in general, startup advisors, VCs will recommend launching sooner than you think. Launch when you think it's ugly, when you think that it's not ready to launch. If you're happy with how it looks when you launch, you've launched too late. That's a common phrase. And I fundamentally now understand it because it's happened to us. And so this is what I want to try and convey to you guys to teach. Launch as soon as the class ends, as soon as the course ends. Try to launch as soon as the course ends in the next month, because in 2 months, I'm pretty sure UiPath and Microsoft will copy these ideas. Then it won't be just a few thousand people who know about it, millions of people who know about you can do these kinds of things, and so it'll be much harder. So try to launch as soon as possible, and that's very useful. Okay, so now we'll jump into the interactive part of the course. So I'm going to the class. I'm going to cover 3 new RPA concepts that are super powerful and useful and allow you to target markets that are previously untouched by AI and that are currently not really possible or easy to do in other tools. Okay, so this is intended for people who are completely non-technical. You don't have to understand code or anything, and we're going to go from scratch, and we're going to start with simple concepts first. This first class is just to start with simply because some of our students are actually completely non-technical and never even used automation tools before. And then, through the course of these 4 classes, actually, I'm pretty confident by the end of the last class, everyone will be on kind of the same level playing field, because we've created somewhat like a higher playing field than other tools, and the path to get there is actually entirely simple English and practice. So, we're going to start with the four main no-code concepts in OpenAgent Studio, our desktop application. I'm going to assume that you guys have already installed it by now. We're not going to cover installing it because we're still in beta, actually, and there's like many different hardware issues that you may have, and we're like some users, we have regularly finding users with like different software and hardware issues that we're solving during the beta. So if you encounter anything like that, please work with our support to help us add support for your hardware and software. Subscribers also have access to a private calendar to onboard live, and then we can like set you up manually that way, and investigate custom use cases. So in this course, I'm just in the interest of everyone's time, because some people have already installed it, I'm going to just assume that you've installed OpenAgent Studio, and this is also recorded, so after you install it, you can come back and practice this at home, because most of this is very simple concepts. You can just actually understand how to use these tools because you understand language already. You just have to understand a new way to kind of do it. Okay, so we're going to start with opening OpenAgent Studio. If you have the Mac version, there's actually certain extra security steps that you have to take, and the Windows version mostly doesn't have those security steps, so I'm going to use the Windows version today, but maybe in the next class I'll use the Mac version as well. So when you open OpenAgent Studio, on the left-hand side, you'll see that we've packed it with no-code primitives that are simple and easy to understand. All of our research into semantic targets and Atlas 2 and solving all those problems hides underneath these simple no-code English buttons that we've tried to make as simple as possible, actually. And you start with something called the start node, which is the initial condition of building the automation, and this is optional. So if you double click the start node, it will open some parameters that you can set, and we recommend setting this if you're going to build an automation, like for selling it, to schedule it, to scale it up into thousands of operations per day. This allows you to maintain the initial condition that the agent sees when it starts. So you can actually open any program. What I'm going to do is get the location of Chrome by right-clicking Chrome, clicking Properties, and then pasting in the location of Chrome. Then I'm going to go to a website. You can open any file, folder. It just so happens that most of our customers run their businesses through a combination of services in the browser. So that's what I'm going to cover now. But you can practice this at home with any file or folder or other program, things like that. Chrome also has the feature that you can add the location of the website to the end of the location, and it'll open that browser and location. And I'm just going to go to a Reddit post to do a variation of an automation you've probably seen already if you've done the live group onboarding, but I just like teaching this basic example because it covers the fundamental tools you need to understand to basically automate everything else that's possible. So all automations fall into three main use cases we've learned over the last few years. They're scraping data, filling out forms, and pulling in APIs. And in OpenAgent Studio, there are 4 no-code primitives that we like teaching, because if you master these 4 primitives, there's many more, but if you just master these 4, you can basically build any automation you want. And the 4 are Click, Magic Scraper, Open Program, and these generative tools. And so that's why I like doing this example, because it covers all those 4 core fundamental primitives. And if you practice this, you can basically go and rebuild any automation you want. There's some more advanced tricks that I'll teach today, like conditionals and loops. I'll teach loops today and conditionals. But essentially, you'll see that they all use these fundamental 4 primitives. So after this class, I recommend you practice with OpenAgent Studio to try and automate something that you think is very difficult or valuable, just to get the hang of it and practice, in parallel to finding the problem that you maybe want to solve and build a product out of. And you'll find that very quickly you'll become an expert, actually, because everything is entirely in English. There's no code selectors here. There's no computer vision selectors. It's much more accessible, and the solution space is dynamic such that you can traverse it in language for the first time. So it's kind of exciting. So this start node, if you double click it, I'm going to put Reddit there. Once you've created the start node, you can hit File Run or Control R just to test it. And in the top right hand corner, it'll give you play, and it should open Reddit. And if this has worked for you at home, you can follow along. Congratulations, you're an AI automation agency. So this is the first step. And next, I'm going to add something called the Magic Scraper node, a very important, one of those fundamental core no-code primitives to building all automations. And in this case, I'm just going to give it a target in English to get the text, the title of the Reddit post. Okay. So we call this the Magic Scraper. We used to call it the Describe node, but I called it Magic Scraper so often that we switched the name, because you can scrape anything you want on the page using English as the target. Unlike every other scraping tool on the planet today, which uses code selectors or computer vision, this is far more robust, you'll realize, because if services update their designs, it still works. It's kind of magical like that. So it's dynamic and specific and far more useful than code selectors. And people, I think, the part of this course is just to prove that point and teach this concept. So people will probably start to understand this and switch to this, I think, in maybe like a few months to a year, because it seems kind of like a no-brainer. Okay, so one of the things you can do, so you can target anything in English. So you can say the title of the Reddit post. Or you could have also said the text of the top comment, or the text of only the funny comments on the page, or the text of only the comments on the page that include the word job, or my company cheat layer. And so you can actually add logical reasoning into this targeting, which is impossible with every other targeting strategy on the planet. So you can imagine there's another whole dimension to learn that's much more useful and allows you to automate things that are impossible in other tools. So, okay, I'll continue. But basically, for example, your target could be just email address. So you could say email address, right? And then if you run this agent on any website, even if the email address is anywhere on the page or even in like an image, it'll scrape that email address. So that makes it very powerful and dynamic. However, like I mentioned, this is a solution space in language. So what I mean by that is you might want to be dynamic, or you actually might want to be specific. Both are useful. And this is the first time you actually have the ability to do that. You can't do that with code selectors or computer vision selectors. So instead, what you could say is, let's imagine that you're trying to automate like a CRM with many different email addresses. So you could say the email address that's highlighted. Or in the bottom right-hand corner. And the bottom right corner. And you should practice this. It's kind of like a new skill, but you learn it. It's an easier skill than code selectors and computer vision selectors and every other tool. And it'll make you kind of like an expert in scraping. And then you can impress your friends and things like that. So in this case, I'll just say the title of the Reddit post. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to show you how to use the click node. When you click the click node in Windows, it'll full screen a screenshot of the page. In Mac, there's like a windowed screenshot of the page. Essentially, what it wants you to do is click where you want to target for the next step, and it'll generate the semantic target for you. And then just give it like 30 seconds. Okay. It should pop back up as well. But if it doesn't, you can open it. And then hit the escape key, and that'll allow you to navigate and get comfortable with moving nodes around and things like that. And then double click the click node, and you'll see that it's actually generated the target for us. This is a really cool feature because we have something called the agent recorder. And I'm not going to teach how to use it in this class. Maybe another class we can fit it in. But I wanted to start with teaching the basic fundamentals, like the basics of math first, before we go into algebra. But this is kind of like algebra. So we'll start with like basic operations. But then when you test the agent recorder at home. So what the agent recorder does is it does a lot of this for you, where you can just perform your actions like keyboard clicks, mouse actions, and it'll generate this whole graph for you. So it saves a lot of time, and as you can see that the auto-generated targets are very accurate now. So we solved a cool breakthrough recently that allows us to publish the agent recorder that will save a lot of time. It'll do most of this for you. It even actually deduces what the start website is for you and fills that in for you. So we're basically iterating towards product market fit through product experiments like this that make the UI and UX as easy as possible for completely non-technical customers. And the agent recorder is one big step in that direction. Stay tuned for that. But I just want to teach these fundamental concepts so you understand the value that it's bringing first. Okay, so after you click that that area, next we're going to use the GPT-4 node. We actually ship a Llama node with OpenAgent Studio now, and the first time you run it, it will download this like 6 gigabyte Llama open source model. So that's why I don't do it during these demos. But take some time to play with it when you have some time later because it's 100% free. And Llama 2, you can see it's Llama 2, performs very close to GPT-4 in some tasks. In some simple tasks, it's almost identical. You can edit the prompt and see if it works for you, but it basically allows you to generate unlimited free text generations and scale these agents up. Long term, our vision and idea for OpenAgent Studio is all of these will be open free models. And you'll be able to generate unlimited agents at scale with thousands of agents and build products on them. It'll be exciting. So that's the direction the market is going with open models. We'll be adding an open router option there soon as well. So double click the GPT-4 node. Just for now, I like using GPT-4 because it's faster, but understand that it's more expensive. And then say generate a funny reply to the Reddit post in the input prompt in the first line. And then under automation input, click description, which will only show up if you have this magic scraper node. We should probably rename that to magic scraper. Okay. And then in the typing output dropdown, click true, so that it actually types the output. With the GPT-4 node, you have the option to do modulation and filtering and morphing of previously scraped data, or you could even just do it in the magic scraper node itself. So one common pattern is to scrape all the data you need maybe from like an invoice, right? And then have multiple GPT-4 nodes that scrape the address, the name, everything else you need to send to a spreadsheet, the pricing and stuff like that. And if you do build it that way, then what you can do is you can switch out, once you prototype it, you can switch out the GPT-4 node with the Llama node, which has actually exactly the same identical inputs. You can see it's exactly the same. It's free. It just takes a little bit longer to run. So, okay. So let me just close that. Let me fill this in. Sorry. Generate a reply to the Reddit post. And that should be good. And now we can run this automation. So to run the agent, you can hit File Run in the top left-hand corner or Control R. And let's see what it does. In the top right-hand corner, it should give us a play-by-play. So first, it's going to open the initial condition. Next, it's going to scrape the top Reddit post. You can see in the top right-hand corner, it's scraped the Reddit post. And then next, it's going to click, what are your thoughts? I like doing this demo because you can see the mouse has moved to the old position of where we clicked. But then, see, it just clicked in the correct position because in Reddit, sometimes you have ads, and that ad wasn't there when I designed this step. And so you can see like it initially moved a little bit higher and then moved to where the correct position it needed to move. So this kind of proves the concept that the entire website can completely change their design and it'll still work. In fact, our TikTok agent that we run in the cloud, we have customers who run and post things in the cloud, and TikTok updated their design like 3 times in the past few weeks, and our agent kept working. So it's kind of like exciting that works. And here, I'll go back to it proves our original thesis, basically. So if I go back to this click node, it's kind of hard to see, but in the preview, actually I have a preview somewhere. Let's see. I can show you the preview. Okay, let's show you what's happening underneath, maybe. Okay. So in an Atlas 2 model, it thought that we had clicked up here, and then it decided to actually go down here and click it. And then if you look at the input of the target, this is the input of the target. You see, when we built the target, there was no ad above the input. And so I'll run the automation again. Maybe this time there will be an ad or something. We'll see what happens. But you can see, like, when we first created the target, there was no ad. And maybe this time there will be an ad. Or there won't be an ad. Okay, so this time there's no ad. And you'll see the mouse goes to, like, exactly where it needs to go. Okay, see how the mouse has now moved exactly where it needs to go? So in the next step, it's going to click this. But it's not going to need to move. It's just going to work. So that essentially proves the point that this allows you to build robust, future-proof agents that are not possible in other tools. Because other tools, like the most common problem we had was when services updated their designs, we had to like teach customers how to fix that problem. It's no longer a problem anymore. You don't have to worry about this. And so many issues where we used to guide users to a consulting service we had called Office Hours can now be built by customers in simple English faster without spending $50 just to meet with a consultant. And so you can imagine that this makes it much easier for completely non-technical people to build robust, future-proof automations. But also, like, I wouldn't think about the robustness so much. I would think about the fact that this allows you to target things that other people couldn't automate before. Like, I'm meeting with customers daily who, like I mentioned earlier, who have jobs and deep industry insight in things like oil rigs and freight and law firms and stuff like that. And this tool finally allows them to automate certain reasoning tasks that were too tedious or impossible using UiPath, essentially, because they don't have this ability. Okay, so let me go over so those are the basics. Now I'm going to go over like a few more advanced concepts. And there's actually a lot of advanced concepts that we've learned through the process of meeting with hundreds of customers over the last few months. But you can now build all of them in OpenAgent Studio. And you'll notice that all of these advanced concepts use those same 4 basic primitives: click, magic scraper, open program, and the generative tools. So if you practice this after the call, I'm sure in like a week or two, you will become an expert in such a level that you can automate things that software developers have trouble automating. Yeah, we've done this with one of our customers where they tried to hire a software developer to automate something and they couldn't do it, right? Because of browser security issues. But this non-technical user, I taught them on the call within 30 minutes to automate something that a software developer couldn't automate. And that just like gives me chills and like down my spine, because it finally feels like we've realized that original vision to help like completely non-technical people automate their business, like, and replace me, basically. So the goal was to replace me because I was getting overwhelmed. And if now non-technical people are doing things that software engineers can't do, we're there. And so, okay, let me teach you this new... okay, so in this class, I'll try to keep the concepts a little bit simple, but this is a little bit more advanced concept. And then next, I'm going to teach you if-else statements and looping. But you'll see that you can practice these things at home. After like a few examples of this, it usually takes me 3 to 5 meetings, maybe a few weeks, you'll become an expert in automation, AI automation, no-code AI automation. You can build your own agency, but what I would recommend is building a SaaS, targeting a market that's been previously untouched by AI, because for the next few months, this benefit is like confined to our few thousand customers, right? So I'm pretty sure people will copy this idea. Other tools will have it soon in like a few months. We don't want to defend patents in court. So before that happens, I want to try and encourage our customers to launch an actual product, a SaaS product, not an agency. I mean, you can launch an agency if you want and help people one by one, but if you find that could be a path for you to find like this deep industry insight. I've seen some customers do that. So try to launch an agency, try to help people, and then find someone who has deep industry insight in things like freight and oil rigs, right? One of those markets that haven't been touched by AI, that you can't find a solution on Google, and then use their deep industry insight to partner with them and build a solution for them that they'd be willing to use. And if it's valuable for them, then you can sell it to the entire market. And you won't have competitors for the next few months at least. That's like a $1 million opportunity, several $1 million opportunities possibly even more, right there. And we don't have the deep industry insight, actually. I don't know anything about oil rigs, but we've built the platform to allow our customers to take advantage of this, and we built it in such a way that allows us to grow network effects and a defensive moat. And that's something I'll cover in class 3, but essentially it's something you should consider for when you do have competitors eventually. Imagine that you go through this class, you build an agent that's valuable, and you sell it, and okay, all that's great, yes, amazing, okay. But if you sell something that's valuable and makes money, you'll notice every business has this problem. Eventually, you'll have competitors, you'll have people copying you and things like that. So if you do build anything of value, it'll just happen. So this course will give you a head start. People won't know how you built it for maybe a few months to a year if we're lucky. But we're also going to teach how to build something called network effects and a defensive moat, such that when you do have competitors, then you'll be able to keep your customers. They won't jump ship because you'll have a better product. And you'll be able to carve out market share and keep growing. So let's start with this reasoning-based targeting. So this is a new RPA concept. Like I mentioned, we're introducing certain new RPA concepts like semantic targets that make it much easier than code selectors. So let's try something called reasoning-based targeting. Okay, so for this one, I just need to find a word on any page. You can do this at home on any website, actually. I'm just going to use Twitter. So let's find like a weird word. That's like hard to find, maybe. Paternity? Okay, paternity. Okay. All right, we'll use paternity. And this is just for illustrative purposes. You'll use this in probably like more complex situations and things like that. So I'm just going to start with a simple example before we go into loops and conditionals. So let's just add the magic scraper node, click File New to clear the node code graph, click the magic scraper node to add a magic scraper node, and then I'm going to go over an example of how you can use reasoning-based triggers. So rather than scraping data, which is like how every other tool works, you can scrape reasoning for the first time. And so you can add columns that are like yes or no, that are based on reasoning that were previously impossible. And I mean, now I guess you can kind of like convolute it, like send something to Zapier and get the ChatGPT result back and all that stuff. But this makes it much easier to build these kinds of things. So, okay, so let's say, is there a tweet on the page that includes the word paternity? Is that right? Did I spell that right? Paternity. Paternity. Yeah. Okay. And then you can ask it to format the output in a way that will flow into your conditional statements. So what I mean by that is you can say only yes or no. There. So that way it might describe the output if you didn't do that, but in this case you can keep adding to the prompt. This prompt can actually be 20 pages long to teach it the rules and formatting of everything you need to understand this. Kind of like employee, actually. So if you've trained an employee to do a task that requires some kind of visual reasoning, you can now train this single magic scraper node to do it. So it's kind of powerful in that way, actually. And so, all right, let's just try this and see what happens. It should work because there is a word that says paternity, and I didn't have an initial yes. Okay, so in the top right-hand corner, hopefully you should be able to see yes. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm streaming the top right-hand corner. Yes, okay. And now let's scroll somewhere else and try to run this agent on like another tweet and make sure that it says no. Okay, no. So you can see that like very quickly we've now built this complex reasoning agent, but that was a simple thing. We just asked for a word. You can make it much more complex. You can say things like, is there a tweet on the page that mentions my brand? And then emails you when it finds it. Or is there a tweet on the page of a startup that is looking for funding? And then emails you or sends it to a Google Sheet. And so you can build these kinds of reasoning steps that you previously maybe had to hire a VA or someone to go do into the Magic Scraper node. It's such a super powerful node. I really love it. It's so exciting. So okay, so that's one. The concept is reasoning-based targeting. Okay, so now we're going to take that a step further. So you can add on to reasoning-based targeting to build, just like how we were running this multiple times, right? Like I ran it and it said yes, and then I ran it and it said no. You can build an agent that just scrolls down a little bit, runs it again, says no. Scrolls down a little bit, runs it again, says no. Scrolls down a little bit. Oh, it finds something that mentions my brand or someone who's interested in AI automation. Says yes. Then, maybe what you want to do is send it to your CRM to send out an automated message or something. Or I'll send you like a message in Slack so you can DM the person or something, right? So now you actually have the ability to build these kinds of dynamic agents that were very difficult before to build, actually. And so it's like just 2-3 nodes, you can build something like that. So let's take it a step further, and let's add something called conditional statements and create a loop. So a conditional statement is basically an if-else statement. It's a condition. So a condition is something like a test. You're seeing if this is this, do this. Or if this is not this, do this. So the conditional statement can be constructed in English, just like I just said. Like, if the tweet has the word job, say yes. That's a conditional statement. So it's if, then do this. That's a conditional statement. And then, in the conditional statement, you can have it basically predicated on the output of the magic scraper node. So the magic scraper node itself can have conditional statements in the logic, right? So in the magic scraper node, like I just said, you can say if the tweet has the word cheat layer, say yes. So that's what we're going to test something like that next. And if it says yes, then go do something. So I'm still like kind of scrolling and doing manually, but you can actually automate this entire reasoning process where if it's something, do something. And that's what the if-else conditional node is for. Okay. So adding on to this, we're going to add the if-else conditional node. Hit escape to move the nodes around. Okay. And then we're going to loop the B option of the if-else conditional node to the A input of the start node. And the reason we do that is because the B output is what gets run when the condition is false. So if there's nothing there, it'll just keep looping and keep going. But if it finds something, we want it to do something else. So maybe we want it to send it to a Google Sheet. Or maybe we want to send it to an email. So you have all these options, actually. In this case, I'm just going to loop it around and let it go until you can see yes or no, and just show you the fact that you can loop things. Okay, so all right, just to keep things simple, say yes or no. All right, so I'm going to run this node, and let's go here. Okay, so the conditional is no. I'm going to keep scrolling. It's going to keep running, actually. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. I forgot to give it the description node. Okay, sorry. Before you do that, open up the if-else node and give it a variable to think about. So when you drop the magic scraper node, in the if-else node, you have to have it pay attention to one of the variables. And this description variable, like we did in the last automation, will only show up if you drop the magic scraper node. And let's see. And then if the magic scraper node includes the word yes, then continue. But if it includes the word no, continue looping. Okay. So now let's run this. And go back up here. I think the yes example was at the top. Okay, so it's saying no. And it's still saying no. I'm going to keep scrolling down. There should be a bunch of no's. All right. Now let's go back up to the top where we had that word. I forgot the word, so maybe it'll find it for us, actually. That'd be cool. Hold on. What was the word? Pray something. Where is the word? Paternity. Okay, good. Hold on a second. Let me see if the prompt is correct. Say only yes or no if the word paternity exists. The page. Okay. Stop that. Do that. And let me try this and just make sure it runs. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So once you get a yes, then what you want to do is you want to output. Hold on, let me loop this again. Loop there. You want to send the output to like an email or a Google Sheet or something like that, essentially. And this allows you to build conditional-based triggers. Yes. And then yes. And then no. Okay, cool. All right, so you get the idea. This is one of the advanced concepts. I would practice at home and see if you can rebuild this automation at home. And basically, there's like there's a few more like difficult, complex concepts that we're introducing into RPA that we'll be covering in the next 2 classes. But this is actually everything that you need to know. These the click, the magic scraper, the open program, and the generative tools. If you combine them, then you can build any automation that you've built before, as long as you've done it manually before, and as long as it doesn't require like open-ended research and things like that. So, okay. So yeah, so yes, 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 and then if we go somewhere else, it'll say no eventually. No, okay, yeah. Cool. So this is kind of like, this is actually useful as like a trigger for like certain live agent triggers, which I won't cover in this course, but live agents, basically, they allow you to build these kinds of visual triggers that step in and suggest automations across your business. So you know how business has standard operating procedures? You can now just automate the entire standard operating procedure and have like an agent that runs on like every one of your computers and detects when it should be automated and just like suggests it. And that's exciting. That's for another course. This is all. I don't want to like blow anyone's mind here today. I just want to start with the simple things. So these 4 fundamental RPA concepts: click, magic scraper, open program, and the generative tools. This new idea of reasoning-based targeting, and then conditional semantic targets, semantic triggers. Okay. So practice this at home before the next class, and try to automate something that you think is difficult and hard to automate that is valuable to you. And even if you get stuck, I'm sure we can like show you a combination of these nodes to build almost anything. Over the last few months, we've helped like large enterprise startups, well, it's kind of large, like a banking startup, automate certain banks that don't have APIs, and like a private equity firm and a recruitment firm, but automate like really difficult, like freight and oil rigs, like really difficult tasks, but not like technically difficult. Difficult in the sense that you need certain reasoning and an insight, like knowledge work that previously wasn't possible to automate. However, with these tools, you can see like everything we did today, all these steps, right? None of this was code. These were all English-based steps, which means that you already know all the skills you need to know to do well here, actually. You just need to kind of teach yourself like a new way to do it, basically. Okay, so by the end of the course, by class 4, even if you're completely non-technical, you should be able to, I've taught like several non-technical people now, you should be able to build automations that are impossible in other tools and possibly even impossible for software engineers or hard for software engineers to do. And so that is leverage. That is something that you can take advantage of to target a market that has been previously untouched by AI. Okay, so we're running a little bit over the hour, so I'm just gonna go through this last demo really quickly. So we also have something called live mode, which we actually use to build our entire agent's dashboard. So live mode allows you to build products step by step, like speaking to an engineer, and you can build super complex products like our agent's dashboard that allows agents that have voice, email, SMS, and embedded agents. All these features we generated using the old version of live mode, so it is even harder. But essentially, my point is, we've done super tedious things like our GitHub and Vercel integration that made it possible to host a local file system in the browser and clone things to Vercel. So things that are really difficult, it's possible, but you don't need to be technical to understand how to build it, because it's like you're talking to a software engineer who's building it for you. So I'm going to go over a quick, cool example here that we can start with. And in this course, we're actually going to try and focus on an agent-based product because I think there's a huge opportunity there. But this will help you probably build your landing page, your dashboard, and everything else you need around that solution. And I mean, it's also possible to build entire products like we did, but in this course, I really want to try and focus on an agent-based solution if you have deep industry insight in something like that. Okay, so to start, just copy this first prompt or type out this first prompt. You'll have access to the slides after the class. And then go to any website and hit Alt-S. And then paste in this prompt. Let me just read it. So generate a fancy modern landing page for a consulting agency, just to start. And this will take like 30 seconds, and it'll finish. And the cool thing is, it'll build a website, but it'll also build functional products and tools that use code and things like that. So maybe I'll go over like a simple example first, but then we'll go over like a little bit more complex example. You can also have it generate images of anything using DALL-E, and videos of anything using Stable Video. But in this example, let's just go like over a few quick examples. So here, let's just say add a functional mortgage calculator. Calculator. Okay, sorry. And this is just an example that shows you don't have to be technical to understand how it works. You can ask it to build lead magnets that are functional tools that actually do run like all the available open source JavaScript libraries to build almost anything. Like you can even build like little 2D games, things that listen to voice, that transcribe voice, lots of really cool fun things like that. And we have some users who are like actually building like board games and things like that. That's kind of fun. Entire products are being built with live mode actually, like our agent's dashboard. So let me just go a quick example. Okay, so you can see that it's actually a functional tool, but I'm going to build something even more interesting next. I'm going to use OpenRouter to build a language model powered lead magnet that's 100% free. So this is I like this example because it's kind of fun. So if you go to openrouter.ai, OpenRouter has some models that are 100% free. We use this for our we don't use the 100% free models, but we use one of the cheap models for our unlimited autoresponder in our Chrome extension. But you can see OpenRouter has a huge list of models, including like the closed models like GPT-4 and Claude. So they allow you to basically build products for anything. But the interesting thing is, you can quickly build free lead magnets because these are 100% free models. So let's see, going to one of these. Mistral 7b instruct. And then the way to work with these things is go to the API. This is also generally how you work with any API. You can just copy the API documentation, paste it into the prompt with your API key, and then tell it what you want it to build. Okay, so that's what I've done here in this example, actually. I've copied the API directions from the OpenRouter documentation, and I've asked it to build me a product validator. But it's 100% free. So in your prompt, actually, I'm going to be like sunsetting this API key. So this one won't work after the class. So what you should do is get your own API key from OpenRouter, where you get keys, and create a key, call it class 1, and copy this key, and then go back into this prompt, which you'll have access to after the class. Or you can try it yourself, because it's kind of like very easy to do this. And then just copy this whole thing into what we just built in live mode. So let's just find somewhere else. Live mode allows you to select parts of the page to build things. So you can select this part. And now I'm going to say build this. Okay. So this is 100% free. It's very useful for lead magnets because it's 100% free. I'm sure we've gotten some traffic from our unlimited free autoresponder. And actually, AI offers a path to like disrupting certain free consumer products like Google. So think about this. You might be able to build an actual valuable product with a completely free model as well. So, okay, let's see. Validate. Okay, so my idea is an AI dog for assistance. And it says urgency, dogs require constant attention and care. That's a good urgent problem. Yeah. Frequency, dog owners need assistance. Yep. Market size, it's a huge market. Great. All right, cool. It's a good product idea. AI assistant for dogs. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a good product idea. Actually, in the course, we're going to teach you how to validate the idea by formally testing it with an MVP as a scientific experiment. But this is just a simple example to teach you how to build your own lead magnets and products using live mode very easily. We built our entire agents dashboard that's how we grew to 38K MRR mostly using live mode step by step. And I didn't write most of this code. Like 90% of the code was written by live mode, and I just like edited the styles and things like that afterwards. It's too tedious. And so it's much faster. I did it months faster than I would have done it. I could have done it. It just did it much faster. It helps you iterate faster based on user feedback. I highly recommend playing with live mode and building your own free lead magnets. And also, once you do this, it'll be published instantly to cheatlayer.com. You can share this with your friends, but if you link your GitHub and Vercel API key, I don't have time to cover it in this class, but if you link your Vercel and GitHub API key, it'll publish that same website to your Vercel, which allows you to link up a custom domain, and it's your own product and website. You can build your own product, actually, using live mode entirely. But what we're going to focus on in this course is, for the next class, I would try to find an automation, a market that hasn't been touched by AI, something that you can automate using some of these reasoning steps possibly, something that was previously difficult to automate because it required reasoning steps. And I think that's much longer, like a longer-term solution. It's going to be much more defensible than like simple products like this. So you can still build products like this, but the purpose of this course is to target a market that's been untouched by AI. Okay, and actually, this same tool, you might notice it. You might notice it's familiar. The tool here, you can try it. It's under the video, the live video in the course. I generated this product entirely, actually, an hour before the course. So if you were watching the course like earlier this morning, you wouldn't have seen this tool. I just added it into the page an hour before the course. I validated for tools. You can validate your idea here. I put a little bit of prompting to just like convey the idea of urgency, frequency, but it's not very sophisticated. But the model itself might have a lot of insight. So yeah, use this just to play with it. But for the next week, really try to find that meaningful problem that you can't find on Google. Not like sales automation or social media automation, which will probably you'll make money, but it's just going to be a slog. You're going to have to compete with everyone else. I think really we have the opportunity for maybe a handful of our customers in this class to teach them to build like an actual $100 million product that currently hasn't been automated. And I would seek those like boring, like unsexy products like oil rigs and freight and things like that. But they haven't been. The reason they haven't been touched by AI is probably because they're unsexy. But they're $100 million opportunities there actually, possibly even more than Cheatler itself. So that's what I recommend focusing on. And let's get back here. Okay. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. Target markets that are previously untouched by AI. Like you can see that we've done pretty well by selling the pickaxe. So the idea of selling the pickaxe rather than going for the gold. Actually, in my first startup, we had an investor. We had 12 investors in my first startup. We raised $3.2 million. One of them was a billionaire, and one of them was a gold baron. So one of the old gold barons in LA. Actually, I wish I remember his name. It is like really old guy, and he had really interesting stories of how all the early streets in LA were formed. And so it's really, really interesting about the early gold rush and how it was like a divine event for him to go and find gold. But more interestingly, my mentor at the time, Halsey Minor, CNET's founder, taught me the idea of selling the pickaxe. So, I mean, gold wasn't doing that well when he invested in us. It's maybe doing better now. But you make a lot more money selling the pickaxe than trying to go find the gold, actually. And so the idea is, if you can sell the platform, if you can be AWS or Google Cloud, you make money with all the startups trying to sell AI, even if they don't make money, even if most of them fail, actually. So try to find a solution maybe that's untouched by AI, but also allows you to sell the pickaxe, that will allow you to build something called network effects and a defensive moat, and something we'll talk about around in class 3. But this is just some of the ideas to think about while you're considering what to build. And I recommend spending like this next week really like considering problems that you would be willing to work on for the next 10 years, something that's be meaningful to you, but also something that you won't find on Google, because it'll just make it a lot easier. And so, okay. So finally, we went a lot over this class. I'll try to keep it down to 1 hour. So if you have the community plan, and we'll be closing off subscription, allowing users to subscribe to the community plan by class 2, just because teams will be formed by then, and we don't want to have to waste too many resources with forming teams. And we want to really try and get this done in 4 weeks, because, like I mentioned, the market changes daily for even us. Like, every day we have to consider what happens in the market. So 4 weeks from now, I'm sure things will be completely different. And so it's entirely possible people will copy us in those 4 weeks, hopefully not. Hopefully we get lucky and have a month of, we can teach our customers this special thing that no one else has, and they can go build products. So that's why I'm trying to encourage people to do this as fast as possible. We tried to get it down to just 4 weeks is probably the best I can do. I don't think I can do it faster than that. So if you have access to the community plan, we'll be having these team building events and ways for you to form teams. But I recommend actually, based on like mentoring hundreds and even the last boot camp, finding someone in your own life that you have like a relationship with, that you've worked with for maybe a few years, like a friend or a coworker that you'd be willing to work on a project even if it doesn't succeed. And it just helps. Co-founder issues tends to be like one of the bigger failure modes in everyone that I've mentored over the last like hundreds of people. So try to find someone that you'd be willing to work with for months. And through these team building events, if you can't find someone, we'll also allow you to introduce yourself. So after this call, I sent an invite to everyone who has the community plan already. You should, I'm knowing we're like 20 minutes over, but you can join me right after this call, right after the call ends. I'll jump onto that call and we'll introduce each other, and you can try to find people, to attract people to form your team. On the community plan, there's some extra instructions on how to make a post to introduce yourself to attract teammates. But I would really try to spend this next week to find people that you personally know, that you've at least spent like a few months working with, because it'll solve a lot of issues. It'll make you'll understand each other. You can bounce ideas off each other, and it'll actually be like a fun experience and things like that. And you won't have to worry about getting to know them in 4 weeks, right? That'll be you can focus on the product and the customer. So I think it's I would really try to find someone you know. And you can give them a 50% off coupon, actually. So we've done it to make it easy for you to attract people. You can give them a 50% off coupon to the community edition. That's lifetime access, and you can keep building products together and forming teams like this, and forming like a Discord channel and building with teams like this for life, as long as the GPT Bootcamp stays up. And I'm really like I like this idea of teaching, so I'm pretty sure we'll like continue on iterating on this idea. And what I've noticed is usually not the first idea is usually not the thing. Most of my successful founder friends, their first idea is how they learn their mistakes, and then their second idea is the thing that goes big. And hopefully, one of the goals of this course is to teach you my mistakes, everything we learned, so you don't have to go through them the first time. Okay, guys. All right. So that's enough. That's it for Bootcamp Class 1. The homework for Class 2 is, like I mentioned in the first slide, compile your list of problems that are urgent and frequent to your own life. Try to just objectively get a big list, and then prioritize the list based on how important they are to you, how much urgency and frequency they have, and then you'll go down teaching them. You'll go down testing them, but we'll teach you how to test one of them. Okay, good. All right, guys. Thank you. And if you have the community plan, make sure to jump into the invite that I sent. There's also a link under the video, if you have the community plan, a link to join the team building meetup right after this class. And this course is also recorded, so you can come back and watch the recording after the live stream ends. All right, see you next week, guys. Thank you.